Hello, everybody. Greetings from NJ Advanced Media Studios, where we're here for the final. Is it the final? It's not really a final. It's here for the season wrap-up of the Rutgers season, the Rebuilding Rutgers podcast. I'm joined with reflective beat writers Ryan Dunleavy, Keith Sargent. This is going to be our best show yet for a couple of reasons. Is this a studio,
by the way?
This is a studio.
It looks like it's just like a
boardroom to you. They don't know. They can't see it, Sarge.
I think
you could be on the 50-yard line right now.
I think you're making
it could be my dorm room. Podcasts happen, undercover. This is going to be our best episode, and there's a couple of reasons why. For number one, because we have to recap the entire year. We've got a lot to talk about, all sorts of big news, but mostly because we have a very special fan base we pissed off this week, which includes, I'll give you a little hint, includes a banjo and the Osmond brothers, right? Just a little taste. Do you know what that is yet, folks? Can you even hear it?
Oh, I can hear it.
That's it. That's all you get now. You get more on that later. But we're going to start with Rutgers, believe it or not. Season's over. It's 4-8.
Went fast.
47 went fast. It breezed right past. Let's start with the end of the last game of the year. Obviously, we talked about this at great length that they needed to plan their best performance to kind of go into the offseason with something to show people. They went into the offseason with their worst performance, really. I mean, it was a 40-7 loss. We discussed a little bit in the video last week. Do you think that with some time to reflect, do you think that sands a little of the luster off this season?
Yeah, I think it. I think I was saying last week that I didn't think it would, but I think it might have. I really think it might have. I think Rutgers. I don't think it changes anything. I think. Spoiler alert, Chris Esch got a contract extension.
Right.
I think he still deserved it. I think they still were improved, but I think now it feels almost a little stale. Like I feel like I've been writing they were improved for like 3 or 4 weeks now, and when I was writing it in the moment, it was like, yeah, they're definitely improved. And now I'm writing and I'm like, are they really that improved?
Right.
And again, as I said last week, it really doesn't matter what I think. All that matters is what Ahmed Anderson thinks or Arthur Sikowski thinks, or do they believe that it's improved? It's as we learned this week, it's an immediate gratification world, and those wins against Maryland and Purdue feel like a long time ago all of a sudden.
Right, especially since Maryland and, certainly Illinois turned out to be a terrible team. Maryland got doors blown off by Penn State. Obviously, Morgan State doesn't even count. Purdue is a bowl team, but still a 6-6 bowl team. I don't know what the record 13-35. If my math is right with the teams they beat. So not a good slate of victories. Still, compared to last year.
I was surprised a little bit on I guess we're never surprised by Chris Esch and how brutally honest he is after a game, but he really did concede that he was disappointed in the way they played the final 3 games, and you're including the Penn State game, which I thought they had a better effort than the score indicated. But certainly the final 2 games, I was a little surprised that they didn't come out with more, make it more competitive. I thought it was going to be more competitive. Michigan State, credit to them because they, it was just a methodical, they just pounded them. I don't know if I've ever seen a game where they were in control, even though they didn't get touchdowns. Right. They got field goals. They settled for field goals, but they just, dominated that game. Rutgers was, just not even close to them.
Yeah, at least against Penn State, they had those 2 early drives. They had to settle for field goals, but they could have been up 14-0. This game, the time of possession thing is still one of the most, stunning things I've ever seen. 48 minutes of time of possession is just, that for Michigan State is just, just outrageous. And they did, at least we had our first full glimpse of Jonathan Lewis, which I think is one thing you got out of that game. It was a shorter glimpse because the offense was never on the field. Ryan, what did you think overall? Did you like what you saw? Some of it, what you saw, were you disappointed? What's your thought?
I think that's I think it was exactly what I thought it would be if they played him, which is he had a home run moment.
Right.
It was a broken play basically. He scrambled out. Mm-hmm. He threw on the run. He didn't even set his feet. And we saw how good his arm is when he's improvising. And threw a bomb to Raheem Blackshear, who's also a true freshman. So that was your moment of, this could be what the future looks like. But overall, you could tell he wasn't ready. All of us and all of the fans clamoring for more Jonathan Lewis earlier in the year, I think you saw maybe he wasn't really ready.
A couple of bad interceptions. He bounced the throw on a wide-open target. Yeah. There were a couple that were just, you could see that the kid obviously has a lot to do developmental-wise.
It is amazing that, and we've talked about this before, the most popular player on the team is always a backup quarterback, and we've been clamoring, myself included, but the fan
I've never been guilty of this. Never would I endorse a backup quarterback for 3 years of my life.
If there were three
and died in the hill with the backup quarterback, I would never do such a thing. Go on, sorry.
If there were 3 more games, you'd write another it's time for Kylan Boland's column.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I just remember going back, even Terrence Shawwell in 2004. I remember he had a moment where he threw a long touchdown pass in the game. Dom Natale. I mean, the list goes on and on of guys where they come in and they have that one moment. You're like, oh my goodness, and they whet the appetite.
Dom Natale. Wow, that's pulling it out.
Michigan State.
Yeah.
Overall, it was a very uneven performance, and I don't know if as a Rutgers fan you feel any more confident that he's a quarterback of the future coming out of that.
All right, so the big news, we knew it was coming. We didn't know when it was coming. Ryan, you broke the story, the contract extension, 2 years, new deal. Explain it to us, first of all, because they're terming it. It's not an extension. Yeah. It's a new contract. What's the story
I think
there?
is fascinating is we just saw Greg Schiano sign a memorandum of understanding, and then Tennessee backed out of it, and now he might sue Tennessee and all. Chris Ash has coached on a memorandum of agreement, which is the same thing, for 2 years. Huh. That is amazing to me.
I guess if the checks cash, that's interesting. I didn't know.
So this is actually Chris Ash's first contract.
Okay.
What's the difference? Probably not much, except now Schiano shows you there's a difference.
Right.
But he had a salary and he had all the terms and all. But this is his first contract. So basically, instead of having 3 years left on his original 5-year deal, he now has a 5-year deal. So he got 2 years added, which is basically because Rutgers was put on NCAA probation for 2 years, and his original agreement stated that however the length of NCAA sanctions from the mess he inherited from Kyle Flood, he would get those years guaranteed back. So if Rutgers was on a 1-year probation, he probably would have got a new 4-year contract. If Rutgers was on 10 years of probation, Chris Ash probably would have gotten a 15-year contract. So.
For life.
What's crazy about it just reminds me of Greg Schiano. I remember, at year 3, I remember covering it, and his message to recruits, to the media was, it begins now in year 3. And I guess that's pretty much going to be the feeling around Chris Ash right now, because year 1 certainly was tough to make an evaluation. As it turned out, we saw the mess that he truly inherited, and then even year 2, the NCAA stuff drops in mid-September. You find out that they do go on probation, so. Essentially the clock starts in year 3 for him.
The problem is that ain't going to fly with fans this time around.
No.
It might have worked. It might have worked with Greg back in
because they had
program,
less fans.
different time of the different world, different instinct. I mean, a lot has changed in those 17 years.
But as we know, he has an AD who clearly is supporting him now. He's not going to be on the hot seat, no matter what. I mean, they could start off and they could lose. Of course. I'm
talking about Joe Fan, the guy in the stands is already out of patience.
Yeah. No doubt.
I mean, a lot of them. So it's going to be a much harder thing than
boosters.
Boosters. People are
fascinated by next year's season ticket number. I might put in the Oprah today to get I am fascinated.
It's going to be very interesting. All right, so let's break it down. I mean, in different categories, I gave him a report card online. I'm curious what you guys think. Obviously the first category, if we're going to do offense, is going to be ugly. Can you give any grade other than the F that I gave him for offense?
Dude, I went to a pretty good high school. There were no F minuses.
Right.
Is there an F minus anyway? No. F. You have to give them F. Right. I mean,
127th in the nation in total.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah. And by the end of the season, it actually probably was worse than they started off against Washington, a very good team, with 190 passing yards, 2 touchdowns by receivers, and I don't think another wide receiver caught a touchdown pass all year. I think it was just the first game.
Crazy.
With 2, Grant and Bailey. I don't think they had another one all year, which is crazy as I say that out loud. And then the season finale, they get 5 first downs and 112 total yards.
Unbelievable.
So, okay, I'll give him an F. So before you guys make fun of me and laugh me out of our studio.
Oh no.
I will say this.
Oh no.
They managed to win Big Ten games because their offense was, and they won
Smart.
it. Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't matter what the total yards were in those games or the total points. They won the game because they were able to play that style.
Correct.
And you can't say that even though the numbers were awful against Purdue or against Illinois, that it was a bad offensive day because they won the game based on the way they managed the clock and controlled the game.
I'll give you Illinois, but with Purdue, the defense won that game, and even Maryland, the defensive stand at the end of the game. I mean, the offense did get him in that position, but there's a defensive touchdown against Maryland too.
Yeah.
So
I can't say that they played winning. They won the game.
Smart.
They played smart.
Right.
So I'm giving it an F.
It's like you give them an F plus.
Yeah,
Is that such a thing?
No, it's
I tried to go minus. The difference, of course, I agree with Sarge. They made enough winning plays. I just don't think that style's sustainable when you're 107.
Yeah,
all right.
No way.
Defense is much more interesting because obviously, if you're on the field for 48 minutes and Michigan State was like 13 of 20 on third downs, the defenses did not do well in a lot of these games. What do you give them, Ryan?
I would probably give them a B.
Give it a B.
Even though they're ranked in the bottom half of the nation in stats, I'm going to take Sarge's argument that you can't just agree with stats. You touched on it right there. I mean, they were on the field all the time, especially at the end of the season. And to me, you mentioned the Purdue and Maryland games, how the defense won the game. Those two stands I have seen 1,000 times. And I asked after the game, Darnell Davis, Dorian Miller, those guys agreed with me after those games. How many times Washington State, Eastern Michigan, et cetera, have we seen Rutgers defense on the field trying to protect a 3-point lead or a 4-point lead or a tie score? Last year, you and I were in Minnesota, Steve. Rutgers was up 1 with 4 minutes to go. We knew that defense was giving up a field goal at the buzzer. Rutgers held the lead in those two games. So, stats aside, the defense made some big plays to win some games.
So you give them a B, Sarge?
Yeah, I would probably give them a B+. And just to add to that, I mean, a sign of a pretty good defensive team is they didn't squander leads. When they got the lead, they held it. They were overmatched, clearly overmatched against the elite Big Ten teams. Those numbers were ugly, but in games that they were supposed to play or the talent level was even, they outplayed them.
All right, so that segues nicely into coaching because I think Chris Ash did do a nice job coaching-wise on the defense for that very reason. He held it together. He had lost a lot of important pieces to that defense. They played more closely to the style I think he wants to play. Secondary did well. I think I gave him a B- in coaching, maybe, and I think that's about right because, and I'm judging it again based on the talent that he has. This is not if he had Urban Meyer's players and they had this, it was a B- type thing. What do you think?
I agree, B-, and here's I'll tell you why. If you want to say B- is a good grade, it's because he did this. He lost so many guys, and every team says next man up, blah blah blah. I roll my eyes. Rutgers embraced that next man up. I mean, there were times they had 3 two-way players. If you have 1 two-way player, it's a national story. Rutgers had 3. Miles Nash, Jawan Harrison, DeCoven Bailey played both ways. That's incredible. So there were times they had guys on the field where I'm like, is he on scholarship or I thought he played wide receiver. How is he at Rashad Blunt playing defense? I was like, I swear he's a wide receiver. So that's actually 4 two-way players. There were the next man up thing. I just thought he did a great job rallying his guys when their backs were against the wall. But if you want to say it's a bad grade, some of his stuff, some of his conservativeness, and I get it. So I get it that he's trying not to lose games. He's trying to keep scores. I get it. But, the last one that left me scratching my head, and I'm kicking myself that I didn't ask him this in the press conference after the game because you can't ask it 5 days later, is he let 20 seconds go off the clock against Michigan State. All he had to do was call a timeout at the end of the first half and force a punt. And maybe Michigan State one-hops the punt, or maybe it sails over the punter's head. And if it doesn't, if you get down at the 1-yard line, you take a knee, and you go to halftime. But he didn't. He just was like, it was 16-7. He was like, sounds good to me.
Get the hell out of here, yeah.
Sounds good to me.
So true. I know. Sorry,
I'm going to give him a B, and here's why. I mean, first off, I know you guys are going to make fun of me. I gave him an A last year.
I can't wait.
And I stand by it.
You stole my thunder.
And I stand by it.
So you're going from an A to a B.
On September
so they got worse.
18th, on September 18th, when that NCAA, the final NCAA verdict came out, and we saw the level of mess that he inherited, I was proven right that he deserved an A for that for
78-0. Sorry.
But that being
Caught my
said,
throat
the
there.
expectations
Proven
were
right.
different this year. The expectations were different this year, and we went into the year saying there were 6 winnable games. We talked about it on the first podcast, and we argued the Nebraska winnable game, and as it turned out,
I was very right about that.
you might have been right about that.
Might have been.
That being said, 6 winnable games, and they lost the Eastern Michigan game. There's nothing you can do about it. We talked about it before. You can't lose to a mid-major, especially an Eastern Michigan team that as it turned out, won 5. Yeah, they won 5-7. They won Illinois, Purdue. Those are games that I said were winnable, and that was going to really tell the tale of the season. They won those games. Give them credit. So I give them a B.
Overall, now this is a tough one because you have to take everything into factor, and I think there are a couple things I want to put into this category. I think what the handling the off the field stuff again is very important, and the Amir Mitchell thing comes up. He kicks his best receiver. I know the kid didn't play this year, but kicked his best receiver in the program off the field for transgressions. That says to me that he's taking care of the stuff behind the scenes that were not taken care of under Kyle Flood that really undermined the entire program. That gets key to me. I think the recruiting. We're gonna have Todrick in here. Ryan and I could do a little show about just with him and just on that topic alone. We don't follow as closely as he does, but I think the recruiting is 39th in whatever ranking that matters. It's 8th in the Big Ten, so it's it's at least average. It's certainly above other teams at this point. If you factor all that in, and then I think the 4 wins was the baseline for the season. He had to get 4. Anything below that would have been bad. Anything above that would have been gravy. So, I mean, is it a C+? Is it a B-? What do you think?
Yeah, either one. It's an 80, and some schools do. Some schools give you a B- for that. Some schools give you a C+ for that. It's probably an 80. Yeah. So that's what I would do.
You agree, Sarge? Or
Yeah,
you go higher?
absolutely. I would go maybe a little higher because, like I said, we keep on saying this, that the path to turning the corner to going to a bowl game is going to be win your non-conference games. They did not do that.
Right.
And then hopefully
Sweep Indiana, Maryland.
And then sweep Indiana, Maryland, or at least they beat Maryland. I can't give them – I might go a little higher. I might go 85, again, B+ maybe.
You mentioned the off-field transgression. Sarge had a great story that a lot of people read on – it wasn't just Amir Mitchell behind the scenes. Chris Ash threw a player literally off the field. He threw a player literally off the field at the end of the game. Julius Turner said, "I ain't putting up with that." So
that speaks volumes. So that stuff is being taken care of at least. All right, let's go right to the true or false section. Again, all focused on next year. True or false? Give me an answer, and then we'll go back and talk about some of the stuff. Number 1, true or false? Rutgers starting quarterback next year is Gio Rashino. True or false, Ryan?
Are we talking when we say start? We're talking game 1.
I'm
right?
talking game 1 starting quarterback is Gio Rashino.
True.
Oh boy.
False.
Okay. Number 2, Rutgers starting quarterback next year is Jonathan Lewis. True or false?
False.
True.
Okay. Well, this one's going to be hard to answer. But Rutgers starting quarterback next year is incoming recruit Artur Sitkowski.
At
True or
some
false?
point, true. Starting false.
It's coming in January.
He will. Yeah.
They love
he
the
is
kid.
coming in January.
And that is a big deal. And so is
love
Jalen
the
Chapman,
kid.
the other recruit, is coming in January too.
Yeah, not the same level of hype about him, but yes. True or false?
I'll say false, obviously, because I said Jonathan Lewis.
Rutgers' number 1 running back is not even on this roster for next year. True or false?
True.
False.
Yeah. I think it's got to be Blackshear.
It's got to be Blackshear.
True or false? Rutgers needs to get at least 5 graduate transfers on this roster. 5. That's what they had this year, right?
I'm trying to run through my head how many they had this year.
About
Kicker,
5.
punter, running back, quarterback, wide receiver.
There you
5.
go.
I'll say false, not 5.
Not 5.
I never say true.
They have 18 returning starters.
That's true. True or false? There will be at least 3 changes on the coaching staff. True or false?
3. False.
Okay, you can see stability then you're going with. Okay.
Yeah,
is 2 stability?
Losing 2? I think so. It's an
Okay.
average turnover.
Okay.
Especially since we talk about the offensive coordinator, like he's, might be one of them.
Yeah. Wait, Sarge.
I said false.
False.
Okay. True or false? With the soft start to the schedule next year, Rutgers will be ranked at 6-1. True or false?
If they get to 6-1, true.
I can say true because I do have a vote. I can skew the.
You put them 5. So that's
exactly. 6-1, a Big Ten team true. They're gonna get ranked.
It's going to be 6-1 with the 59-3 loss to Ohio State. Just keep that in mind.
But Ohio State will be
I'm telling you, until you do those votes and you see the bottom 5 and you put,
and you're just guessing between
really tough.
4-3 West Virginia
on a given week during the year.
Final true or false? The expectation for next season is bowl or bust. True or false?
True.
I'm going to say true, but I mean, define again.
Well, for the expectation for us when we go into the season, with the fans, for people.
Fans,
I know Pat Hobbs is not. He's not talking about that.
Except for Pat Hobbs, who's the only person who really counts. But yeah, true.
True. All right. So let's go back to the. So you think, honest to God, do you really think Gio's going to start this season?
I really do. I truly believe
they're gonna spend the next 200 days trying to find someone else other than him.
I mean, that's what they did. That's what they did the last.
I will say this,
last season.
And Ryan can speak to this too. But the one guy that we keep on is Tom Flacco.
Correct.
The coaching staff
really,
and I kind of discounted him because I know some people on the former Western Michigan staff who kind of dismissed him when I talked to him, like try to get a scouting report behind the scenes. They obviously didn't want to go talk publicly about it, but. And I'm telling you, I've talked to a couple people inside, and they like him. He ran the scout team. He did a good job.
Jerry Kill made it no secret that he really liked.
That he has an opportunity.
Yeah, that would be I do think that this is, and believe me, that we write about. We have no idea if Sikowski can play in this level. But
so you think it's Sikowski's game?
I mean, yeah, I do. I really do.
The one thing is, and I love the kid. I mean, he's a really nice kid. Fans are going to love him. When he gets up in front of a podium, he's really, well spoken. One thing is, A, he wasn't the starting quarterback at IMG. I know they have big-time recruits, but he wasn't.
It's a different story.
And B, Oldbridge, again, it was a different system. They run because I'm from Oldbridge, and I know that program pretty well. They run an option that probably didn't fit his talents, but they had a really good year this year without him. And again, I'm putting in perspective that it wasn't the right system for him, that he wasn't an option-type quarterback, but he wasn't spectacular at Oldbridge. So I will say that. But
look at you bringing some knowledge on this.
Yeah. Well, what are you doing?
Why do we need Todrick around here? We don't need Todrick.
Look at you. I'm impressed.
I want to hear more from you.
I just, I'm looking at what they have, and I think they've got to move on past Gio. I don't think he doesn't have the accuracy. He's not a Big Ten quarterback. I think we've seen enough, and I love the kid. I think he's a strong, smart kid, but he isn't the guy. Lewis, I mean, okay, I think there's a good chance he can, but he has not looked like the Big Ten passer in the time I've seen him, and this is after a full year. Again, it's a small window, and I get it. It takes time for players to develop.
But you do see true freshmen. I mean, look at Pittsburgh.
True freshmen, absolutely.
You do see true freshmen.
That's the thing Jerry Keel keeps saying that's driving me nuts. He keeps saying, how many true freshmen around the country? Yeah. Well, Jonathan Taylor is going to win Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year.
Quarterback.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, how about the kid from Pittsburgh?
Right. Yeah. Comes in
and that goes back to Sikowski, because we see it every year now where they have this hotshot, true freshman quarterback come in. And the fan base, look at his recruiting.
Well, this is a little different than. I mean, he's on I think a different level of hotshot, isn't he? Wouldn't you say?
Sikowski?
Yeah. Then Lewis, didn't he?
He had a bigger offer list. I always say I know nothing about high school football. Right. I covered it for 7 years and faked my way through it.
Yeah.
I do not pretend to be a talent evaluator until I see you in a Rutgers practice. And what I need to see in March is Arthur Sikowski against Kai Hester and Saquon Hampton and Bless Austin. That's when I'll know. Having a better idea, but is he on a different level than Lewis? Offer list is on a different level.
He'll have, and going back to him arriving in January, he'll have a much better opportunity to progress quicker than Jonathan Lewis, who came in late. June.
And here's a great prediction. We're all going to be wrong. It's going to be somebody else entirely.
It's going to be the backup quarterback at Cal.
I don't think he's going to be a grad transfer.
You don't think so?
Because 2 years in a row, I think you can get a grad transfer to be your punter or maybe even a wide receiver.
Maybe.
Yeah, but maybe. Yeah. But quarterback is really tough to. You need to develop those guys.
I think you need about 7 grad transfers.
All right. Receiver. We're going to move on to the Big Ten fan base. I'm sorry, the college football fan base we pissed off this week.
On the Rocky Top, down in the Tennessee hills.
Ain't no smoggy smoke on Rocky Top. Ain't no telephone bills.
Once I had a girl on Rocky Top.
This is a great lyric here. Sweet as, what is it? Make a sweet as soda pop, and you'll dream about that.
Here we go.
So, Rocky Top, you'll always be. Come on, Sarge. Home, sweet home to me.
Don't we have any Kings of Leon? Aren't the Kings of Leon from Tennessee?
Woo.
We don't have any Kings of Leon.
So the best part about this song, a quick story, and you've got one too, Rod, but the best part, so my wife is from Tennessee, as you know, and I have 2 young children, and the kids want a song to go to bed. So, you pick a song that you know the lyrics to. So she's been singing Rocky Top to the kids to go to bed. So one night she's out with her friends, and of course, you have young kids. You'll do any, like if they said, "Daddy, I need $50," and I'll go to bed. Okay, here's $50. Go to bed. So they want, "Daddy, you got to sing Rocky Top." And of course, I'm from New Jersey. I don't know the lyrics, so I had to go download the lyrics to the song, and I'm reading the lyrics, and it's a pretty.
It's great.
Crazy song. At one point, the lyrics are, this is great. Once 2 strangers climbed old Rocky Top, looking for a moonshine still. Strangers ain't come down from Rocky Top. Reckon they never will. They got offed. The strangers got killed on the mountain. That's what this song's about. Go team. Rah, rah. I mean, seriously, isn't that great?
Yeah,
that's some serious stuff for a fight song right there.
I don't know that my story matches up to your story, but so when
if you tell the unedited version, it might.
I got to tell the PG version of mine. So, when Rutgers traveled to Tennessee, some fans might remember in 2002,
Greg Schiano was there.
It was Greg Schiano's second season.
Yep.
I was at the Targum beat writer, so I traveled, and I was 19, maybe 20, and we wanted to go to a bar, and I didn't even have a fake ID, so I just basically snuck into a bar. I just basically walked into the bar, didn't even get ID. No, I was like, oh God, I hope they don't check the birthday on my license, which of course they're gonna. No, they don't even look at my license. They're just waving you in like it's a parking lot or so. Just come on in. So I go in, and I'm like, first time I've ever seen. Everybody's got blonde hair and blue eyes, guys and girls. I'm like, here I am, like the Italian guy with the brown hair, don't fit in at all. I walk in the bar, I see a mechanical bull. I'm like, didn't even realize those were real. Culture shock. And this girl gets on the mechanical bull, and I'm like, she has no chance, right? Well, she's from Tennessee, so of course she has a chance. It's probably her millionth mechanical bull ride.
Wild as a mink, but sweet as soda pop.
Yeah,
that's what she was.
She rode that bull for 10 seconds. I was really impressed, and then she went flying up, and her shirt went a little higher than it.
Then that's it. That's a formative moment in your
I remember.
years.
I remember it 15 years later. So
that's a bit of a creep.
And you wonder why Greg Schiano didn't.
You wonder why he didn't like me.
Well, he was He was dying to go to Tennessee.
What are we talking about again? Oh, that's right, Greg Schiano. Yes. All right. So we got to address this because it was really one of the craziest stories I can remember in recent college football history.
Sports.
Greg Schiano gets this job at 2 p.m. and the vitriol and the hatred and the Twitter firestorm that followed. I mean, Sarge,
we've all been waiting for especially last offseason, or last 2 off seasons where Syracuse is open, or all these jobs that you're like, oh, okay, this is a good fit for Greg. Virginia, and he has never, for whatever reason, you've heard that he interviewed at Oregon or a couple other jobs. Like Urban Meyer said that he turned down 2 jobs last offseason, but you kept
said that to me.
Wondering.
I actually asked that question.
You keep on wondering, what's going to be the right fit. And I know people were like, well, Tennessee doesn't seem like the right fit, but I'll tell you why it was the right fit, because they are clearly in need of a rebuild. They were 4-8. Academically, I broke down the academic situation that they were in. APR is one of the worst in the SEC, and graduation success rate, all the other stuff that you measure academics, they were way below average. The one thing that Greg can do is rebuild a program. That's pretty much. And I'll say this too: wherever he goes, he's going to need to recruit Florida. It was more so than going to New Jersey, because he's going to get the Jordan Fullers or those types of guys. He'll have an opportunity wherever he goes, Nebraska, wherever he was to go. He's going to get the opportunity. But going to being able to recruit Florida,
great point.
And Tennessee would have been a great opportunity for him to do that.
Right.
But
what happened was just
crazy.
Yeah. And that's
you went down the head with your column that it was beyond the allegation, which is total hearsay,
right.
that he's that he's emphatically denied.
Yeah.
Beyond that, if he didn't have the if his record, if the last 6 years of his tenure, if that was his record and it wasn't the overall record 67, 66, and then the Tampa Bay failure, people would say, okay, well this guy is pretty good and
right.
Let's embrace him, but they didn't.
It was awful.
Why don't you talk about it, Steve?
Well,
because
yeah,
you had the wildest experience.
Well, yeah, and I wrote a column about it because I just watching this full, and I know Greg, and it's like if you were going to tell me that again that he wasn't a good enough football coach or whatever, I was okay. I'll argue, but the stuff about his character to me was just grossly unfair because it's the one thing he had going for him, and you were around him, you knew that, and you saw him, and this is what amazed me about it. And I was not deep into the whole Sandusky thing like other people were, but I've talked to some people who were, and you had a situation where you had Ohio State looked into it and cleared them. Tampa Bay, an NFL team with all the mechanisms that they have to not to screen people and to do these investigations before they make these $1 million hires. They looked into it. Everyone looks into it, but it didn't matter to anybody. And I got this email that that blew me away. I mean, some of the stuff from fans were just like, "You're an idiot. You suck. Don't tell us what to do." And that's all fine. But the emails that I get from a guy who is actually in this. He says he's like a lawyer. He's a smart dude. He's eloquent. It says in the email, I know it's unlikely that Schiano witnessed anything, but I also, you nor anyone else can prove to me that he didn't. Well, I replied to the guy, well, this is the end of society then. I don't know what to tell you. Like, if you can't, if you can make this charge, if you can make this charge against someone and then say, you can't prove to me it didn't happen, no matter what, like smart people have looked into it. Bill Belichick, your own athletic director, Urban Meyer all say, look, this doesn't seem to be a credible account at all. And yet, it blows up his career in a lot of ways. I mean, he's not going to get another job to that level. He might get, you gave some options, he might get a Power 5, but I mean, it's just like, it is a sad, sad statement on where society is. Forget coaching.
And I was talking to, truthfully, on Sunday when it was all breaking apart, and I didn't think that Tennessee was going to back away. But I was talking to someone pretty close to him who said he has to cut bait, and I was like, no, he should take the job, screw him, and then win the press conference, find himself,
right.
and just make friends in the media, and just win the press conference.
Never had that chance.
It's funny,
but I will say this, and this is the human side. Like the person who was telling me was he wasn't going to put his family in that situation. Which is really sad. Yep. And it's one thing to go there and say, you know what, I'm going to just bunker myself 18-hour days and in the office and just do everything I just said. But he was, at least according to people who were close to him, was legitimately concerned about putting his family into that situation.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. Because I talked to somebody who knows him pretty well too, and they were on our side, Sarge, which is he should take it, win the press conference, blah blah blah. But interesting point about the family. I just want to give a shout out to a podcast listener, Brandon Cohen, who is a big time gambler, and I tried to give when a month ago or so there were odds on who the next Tennessee coach would be. And there were like 10 guys that were under 20-1, and then it was like the field. And Greg Schiano was not one of those guys. It was like field 50-1. I'm like, you should take the field because it's going to be Greg Schiano. And he was like, nah. I'm like, dude, you should take the field. It's going to be Greg Schiano. In true betting sense, he would have placed the bet, thought he won the bet, and then lost the bet.
Of course,
yes, that would have been the ultimate bad beat, right? But and real quick, 30 seconds left, just to argue with Sarge, I thought he would get the job, obviously. I told that guy, but I thought it was a terrible fit for Greg Schiano. I thought he'd take it. I thought he would get it. I thought it was a terrible fit. I didn't think they'd run him out in 3 hours, but I did think they'd run him out in 3 years because I think Tennessee, much like Nebraska, thinks it's still 1996 and still thinks they're an 11-1 job that like Dabo Swinney should leave Clemson to come to Tennessee. They have no idea what kind of fan base they realize. They're a 9-4 program. Right. Greg Schiano's a 9-4 coach who's going to lose a head scratcher. He's not winning you national titles.
I think another thing that appealed to him was having a quarterback, and he obviously I don't know if Jared Garantano is any good, but I think that he thought that he could win with Garantano, and I know for a fact, having talked to him, that's a big thing for him. Wherever he goes, he wants to have a quarterback, and he did not have one in Tampa Bay. He really wants to, wherever he goes, to be able to win with a quarterback.
All right, last segment. We're going to move on to predictions. We don't have a game this week. I thought it would be fun to give me like one surprising or not so surprising. It can be one thing that's going to happen this offseason that people to go, huh, okay. What do you think? What do you think is going to be the surprising thing this offseason?
Does Jerry Kill coming back count?
That would be very surprising to me. Absolutely.
I'm going to say Jerry Kill comes back.
Okay.
I'm going to say Rutgers ends. It's 8 offensive coordinators in 8 years. Now, listen, I don't think anybody's going to know the answer to this, us or otherwise, except maybe Jerry Kill, his wife, and Chris Ash until after December 22nd signing day. But I think he's going to come back. I think he's going to, maybe take a month off, go not be in the office, go, see the doctors he needs to see or whatever. But I think he'll be back on the sideline next year because I think it's who he is.
Sarge?
I'll say we asked about the grad transfer quarterback, and I don't think that's going to happen for a third straight offseason, but I do think that they're going to get a grad transfer wide receiver. I don't know who it is, and I think it's going to be a number one type wide receiver because they need it. They need to have someone, and again, those are the types of guys where you can slide in. Think Andrew Terzilli, a better version of him maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that they're going to get a grad transfer wide receiver to add to the talent. Maybe more than one too.
All right, I think I'm going to do the opposite of Ryan. I think it's not surprising Jerry Kill's not going to be back, but I think it's going to be surprising that they're going to find someone with a reputation that's going to make you go, huh. And it's going to be an interesting change on offense that they're going to finally come. I think this is the year where they have to come up with, they have to present somebody and what the philosophy is going to be. This is what we're going to be offensively. We're not just doing, the survival mode that they did this year. I think it's going to be, we're going to hear a lot about rebuilding a new offense.
And you know what? I'll throw another surprise out there. I think they're going to, not a graduate transfer, but hearing Sarge say this, I think they're going to get a big time transfer, like probably a sit out transfer.
Huh.
Jarrett Garantano's name's I can't. Would he come back to Rutgers?
His
father's clearly upset.
Clearly,
He's a Rutgers grad. Rutgers
Twitter.
needs a quarterback. If Garantano doesn't like the next hire, he clearly wanted Schiano. Could he be the guy? Could one of the other 10 guys who have left New Jersey in the last 2 years, who are unhappy at their current schools, come back home? I've already heard rumors. I don't know who it is, but I've already heard rumors that somebody who was a former Rutgers decommit wants to come back to Rutgers.
Interesting.
So I don't know the name. I'm not withholding it. I just don't know it. But somebody from Baylor. They lost 2 kids to Baylor last year who were 0-11. This is just me speculating. Baylor was awful this year. Do those kids really want to be in Texas? I don't know.
I'll say this: that could be true, but the batting average for guys who transfer, not grad transfers, but transfer. And go to Rutgers is very, very low.
Yeah.
But it's about
for every Kai Hester, you get a bunch of guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
Kai Hester worked out, but you get a lot of guys who transfer from Michigan, who did not work out. It's a different animal. But no, you might be right.
But a lot of that too is it really doesn't matter how it works out. If insert Garantano or John Lovett, the running back from Cherokee at Baylor, if one of those kids transfers back, it really doesn't matter how he plays. It's about exciting the fans and exciting the recruits.
Right.
I can play with this kid. Blah blah blah.
My theory is if Jim Harbaugh is not letting a player who he really wants to go to Rutgers or transfer home or any big time program. If they're going to transfer to back home to Rutgers, the coach is fairly confident that
Hayden Reddick LSU example.
Yeah, Hayden Reddick is a good example.
All right, guys. Look, I've enjoyed doing this year. I know this is not our final one, but thank you for listening.
Do you get a Marconi or anything? The equivalent? I don't know what for a podcast host or whatever,
Marconi?
but you've done a really
excellent
job.
Should I maybe
you, Schrager?
You're our technical. You guys don't realize the amount of
engineer of the year.
The amount of technical know-how Sarge has to have each week to get this done.
I really do not.
Don't leave me.
I really do not. You host, he runs it. I just sit here and spout off.
It's been
but
fun.
The Tennessee bar story.
For that alone.
Yeah.
And everybody, thanks for listening. Again, we're going to try to do one with Todrick about recruiting because I know everyone wants that. We'll be back for that in a few weeks. Thanks again.